Welcome back for another Yap video. Yes, I do consider this a Yap video. Basically, we're going to be yapping about bloxfruits and the previous update, basically the previous major update, which was the Dragon update, the one we waited a year, an entire year for. And basically what we're going to talk about is whether or not the year that we waited for that update was worth it, and how long or how fast should that update have released if it was to be considered worth it, especially for the time that we waited for it. And basically that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Now first, the reason why I want to talk about it, okay? Now if you go and hop on over to the Discord of bloxfruits, you will see that if developers have talked about wanting to, update more often, and also how they acknowledge that waiting a single year for the update is not necessarily worth it. And in my opinion, waiting an entire year for an update the size of what we got is pretty bad in my opinion. It should have released around 3 months to 4 months after the update before it, which was essentially the winter update part 1. The Dragon rework update was delayed up to about a year after the winter update part 1. In my opinion, for it to have been quote-unquote good, it should have been released 3 to 4 months after that previous updates. I know even that is very long, but that is basically, in my opinion, the best that bloxfruits can do. Hopefully though that they can do better, but again, this is one thing that I'm gonna tell you, okay? Games like RLCs, basically created an entire game within the span of 2 years, I believe. And in the span of 2 years, bloxfruits has not even done close to what half of RLCs did. I'm not saying that RLCs is, I'm not saying that RLCs is the ultimate game or whatever. I'm basically saying that RLCs created an entirely new game in the same amount of time it took bloxfruits to go from update 17 part 3 to update 2020. Yeah, basically the time it took from update 17 part 3 to update 20 was the exact same time for RLCs to basically almost be made. So they made an entirely new game that in my opinion has a lot of in-depth mechanics compared to bloxfruits, fruits here and there. And if you also take a look at other games like Anime Vanguards that, add VFX, they basically make VFX for 12 units. So that's like making VFX for 12 fruits in bloxfruits. And before you say that, the quality is different, the quality in the VFX in Anime Vanguards is not actually that far off from the quality of VFX that you will see in bloxfruits. And they had to do it in 3 weeks. Imagine creating 12 new fruits in 3 weeks. That's essentially what Anime Vanguards did. And the process for making this VFX, I, as a developer, know that the process for making this VFX is essentially the same process. And yes, I am a developer. I have experience with developing. I have seen how long it takes for these stuff to get finished. So 3 weeks, right? So essentially what I'm saying here is bloxfruits could do a lot more. And not that bloxfruits makes bad updates, it's just that they could do a lot more and that they are acknowledging this. I mean, they actually acknowledge right now that they are, or that they could do more, and that they're trying to do more. That it's not fair to players to wait for a year, and that they do want to change and refocus their efforts. And they also did build a new team to design fruits, which is actually pretty good in my opinion. I'm not really saying that bloxfruits is a bad game, but they are, they did mention themselves that they want to change stuff. So essentially what I'm saying right here is how long should we be waiting in between these updates? And I think the optimum time for us to be waiting in between updates, for where they still have enough time to make a good quality update that's actually decent in size and that's actually decent in both quantity and quality without us having to wait for so long, in my opinion, is around 2 to 3 months, at the very most 4 months. Once you start passing those time, I think it actually is starting to be way too long for an update. To put this into perspective, 5 months is almost half a year, right? You know how long an entire year is? An entire year is like so long. That's 365 days. So essentially what I'm saying right here is I think for bloxfruits to have optimum update schedule, it has to be the most optimum every 2 months, and at the very most, maybe 3 months, and at the very most 4 months. Anything past 4 months, in my opinion, no matter how good it is, unless it's an entire rework of the game, is not going to be worth the wait anymore. So that's essentially what I'm saying. But yeah, I think since bloxfruits is trying to, you know, make some changes, that we are going to see a lot of these updates maybe happen. But one of the things that in my opinion needs to get changed even more is their communication. They basically don't communicate with their audience. Like if you go take a look at their Twitter, basically for the entire year that we were waiting for the Dragon rework, they've only made a handful of tweets relating to, you know, what was happening. They basically never informed us of, are they working on this, or are they working on that. They basically kept us in the dark until the update was bound to release, and then it just released. Most of the information that people had came from YouTubers like me, and I think that's not bad because it gives us a job, but it's not very good for the entire player base because you're leaving us in the dark and making us wait for an update for, like, you know, so long, for such a long period of time. So if they are going to be taking longer for these updates, maybe 3 months or 4 months in between the updates, I feel like communication should always be present. They should always be telling us what they're working on and what's happening. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. The next video will be about the DLCs, I believe, so stay tuned for that.